Chapter 1, The Reluctant Legend. The asteroid colony hung in the silence of deep space, a jagged rock wrapped with steel ribs and faint amber lights. Inside its hollowed belly, Elias Ward moved through rows of hydroponic trays, the hiss of nutrient pumps the only sound competing with the distant thrum of life support engines. He wore simple work overalls, sleeves rolled past scarred forearms, hands darkened with soil. The galaxy had long forgotten him, or so he liked to believe. He had traded battlefields for tomatoes, starships for silence. The faint tremor under his boots told him otherwise. Elias straightened, frowning. Few ships ever came here, and those that did were freighters desperate for oxygen or water. This vibration was sharper, cleaner, the mark of a vessel with real power. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked to the viewport, his joints stiff with the aches of age and old wounds. Outside, a sleek silhouette slid into orbit. Its hull shimmered with blue veins of energy, angular yet flowing, as if carved from both crystal and steel. Elias swore under his breath. Kitharin, the docking clamps clanged. His comm station lit up with a voice both melodic and sharp, speaking in accented trade tongue. Captain Ward, by right of treaty, we request entry. Captain, the word cut deep. He hadn't heard it in years. He considered refusing, but the airlock cycled with a hiss before he could reply. 3 figures stepped through the misting seal. They were tall, their skin faintly luminescent, their eyes catching the light like polished obsidian. 3 sisters. He saw in the echo of their faces, the harmony of their movements, though each carried herself differently. The first wore armor etched with silver sigils, her stride purposeful, hand resting near the hilt of a plasma blade. She looked at him like a commander assessing a soldier. The second moved softer, her gaze sweeping across the greenhouse trays, as if listening to something only she could hear. When her eyes met his, Elias felt a strange calm press against the edges of his mind, like the memory of a lullaby. The third, youngest, lingered near the control panel, already tapping through screens with restless curiosity. Sparks of mischief glimmered in her expression. Elias folded his arms, leaning against the support beam. "You got the wrong man. I'm retired." The armored one stepped forward, her voice low and edged. "Humans do not retire from destiny." He barked a laugh, though it came out dry. "Destiny? My destiny is fertilizer ratios and keeping these lights running. Whatever you want, you'll have to find another fool." The empatha's voice was softer, but it carried weight. "There is no other. Only you. We came because you are human. That matters." Her words stirred something Elias tried to bury. Memories of battles where human stubbornness had turned lost wars, of alien allies who whispered that humans were unpredictable, dangerous because they refused to break. His hands clenched. He wanted to send them back, to lock the hatch and return to his quiet exile. But as their ship's energy glow flickered across his greenhouse, painting the leaves in strange alien light, Elias knew one truth he couldn't deny. Whatever they had come for, it would not let him stay hidden. Chapter 2, Sisters of the Void. The common room of Elias's outpost was a cramped metal shell, lit by strips of aging fluorescence that hummed like gnats. The 3 Kitharin sisters seemed too large for it, too radiant, too alive, as if they carried starlight in their veins and had dragged it into his forgotten bunker. Elias sat opposite them at his dented steel table, a steaming mug of recycled coffee in his hands. His fingers tapped against the rim, a rhythm born of irritation and nerves. The armored one, Lyra, she had named herself, spoke first. "You fought at the Siege of Eros. You commanded 2,000 men. We read the records. You shattered the Dominion blockade with half the fleet they predicted you would need." Her voice was measured, but her gaze was piercing, as if she were still testing his worth. Elias sipped, scowling. "Records exaggerate. I had a stubborn crew and a lot of luck, neither of which I've got anymore. The youngest sister, Nari, leaned across the table, eyes bright with restless energy. Her fingers danced across a holographic slate she'd pulled from her belt, conjuring diagrams of ships and ancient sigils. Luck, yes. That's what makes humans different. Kithrin's plan, calculate probabilities, weigh rituals. But you, she pointed the slate at him like an accusation. You improvise. You act when logic says you shouldn't. And somehow it works. Elias grunted, unimpressed. Or it gets you killed. Don't confuse recklessness with brilliance. A silence followed, but not empty, thick, charged. That was when Ceres, the middle sister, finally spoke. Her tone was calm, almost a whisper, but it carried like music vibrating through the walls. The relic lies in a place where Kithrins cannot tread. It was forged with protocols to reject our kind. We tried and we failed, but humans were written into its code. Your species was there when it was hidden, when the treaty was sealed. Without one of you, it will remain sealed forever. Elias set the mug down with a heavy clink. He rubbed the scar that ran across his temple, an old reminder of how often humans had been written into alien wars they never asked for. So, let me guess, he said slowly. You want me to march onto some cursed wreck, dodge whatever traps your ancestors left behind, and fetch this thing for you. Why? What's so important about it? Lyra's jaw tightened. Nari looked away. Only Ceres met his eyes. Because without it, our world will fall into civil war. 3 bloodlines. 3 claims to the throne. The relic chooses the one worthy to wield it. We cannot. Elias laughed, a short, bitter sound. So you wanted to pick your next queen? You're out of your minds. Nari slammed her slate shut, frustration flashing. Not pick, just unlock it. That is all. Do this, Lyra said firmly, and you will be rewarded. Wealth, power, perhaps even a place among us. Elias leaned back in his chair, the metal groaning beneath him. He looked at them, 3 beings from a culture so far from his own, so bound by bloodlines and rituals, staring at him as though he held the fate of their empire. And for the first time in years, he felt the old weight pressing against his chest. The galaxy hadn't forgotten him after all. He wanted to tell them no, to walk away, back to his tomatoes, back to silence. But as Ceres's gaze lingered, soft and sorrowful, something in him cracked. He saw not just duty but desperation, and beneath it, a strange kind of faith. Faith in him, a human. And humans, Elias knew, had a damn hard time turning their backs on that. Chapter 3, the ghost ship, the Kithrin vessel, Ilaris, slid through the void like a blade of glass. Elias stood on the observation deck. His reflection ghosted against the starscape. It had been years since he'd felt the low, steady hum of a ship's hyperdrives through the soles of his boots. The sound thrummed through him like an old song, one he had tried to forget. Lyra stood at his side, arms crossed over her silver-etched armor. Her sharp profile was lit by the glow of the stars. We will reach the derelict within the cycle. Elias grunted. And then, Lyra said flatly, we see if the legends of human instinct hold true. From the corner, Nari chimed in, half buried in the guts of a disassembled drone. He'll do fine. Humans thrive in chaos. She shot Elias a grin, hand smeared with luminescent lubricant. Don't you, old man? He ignored the jab, though his lips twitched. Chaos. That word clung to him like a second skin. When Ilaris dropped out of slipstream, the viewport filled with darkness, and something vast lurking in it. The derelict drifted there, an ancient warship split open like a carcass, hull panels floating in ragged orbit around it. Faint lights blinked sporadically along its frame, as if the ship itself still dreamed of war. The moment they docked, the airlock exhaled a metallic sigh. Elias was first through, mag boots clanging against the derelict's floor. The corridor beyond was half-crushed, walls coated in frost where the atmosphere had frozen centuries ago. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the hiss of their rebreathers. "Stay sharp," Elias muttered. His voice echoed too loudly in the dead ship. Lyra moved with a soldier's precision, blade drawn. Nari floated in the low gravity, wide-eyed, recording everything with her wrist slate. Saris trailed closest to Elias, her presence unsettling, her empathic aura brushed against his thoughts, soft as a hand at his shoulder. They pressed deeper, passing bodies frozen in time, their armor shattered, faces contorted in silent screams. Elias's jaw tightened. He had seen too many like this before. The sisters looked away, but he made himself look, made himself remember. Humans carried their ghosts differently. At the ship's heart, the air shifted. Faint gravity tugged at them as hidden systems flickered to life. A defensive turret jerked awake, targeting reticles glowing red. "Down!" Elias barked, shoving Saris against the bulkhead as plasma bolts hissed past. Lyra rolled forward, blade flashing, but the turret's armor repelled her strike. Nari fumbled with her slate, swearing in Kithrin. Elias moved without thinking. He scanned the room, spotted a broken coolant pipe overhead, and hurled his mag glove at the control valve. The pipe burst, spewing vapor that blinded the turret sensors. Its fire sputtered confused, until Nari's override finally fried its circuits. The silence returned, thicker than before. Lyra stared at him, stunned. "You improvised that in seconds." Elias shrugged, forcing calm into his voice. "Turrets are smart, but they're not imaginative. Humans are." Saris's eyes lingered on him, unreadable, but he felt the faintest thread of warmth in her presence, admiration, maybe even hope. They pressed onward toward the ship's sealed core, where the relic awaited. The corridor lights flickered erratically, shadows bending like claws across the walls. Elias could feel the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on all of them. For the sisters, it was destiny. For Elias, it was the one thing he'd tried to escape. And once again, he was walking straight into it. Chapter 4, Bonds Forged in Fire. The derelict's inner corridors pulsed with intermittent power, as if the ship itself hadn't realized it was dead. Panels flickered, throwing fractured shadows across the bulkheads. The four of them moved carefully, weapons raised, every step echoing too loudly in the stifling half-gravity. Elias felt the tension tightening with every meter. Not just from the ship, from them. Lyra pushed ahead, blade humming as it charged with plasma. "We can't waste time. The relic is in the core chamber. We cut through the locks, fight whatever's in the way, and take it." Nari floated up beside her, eyes sparking with mischief. "That's your answer to everything. Stab it until it works. Why not let me try the systems first? These locks are old. I can outsmart them." "You'll get us killed with your tinkering." Lyra snapped, jaw tight. "This ship is riddled with traps." Nari's cheeks flushed with violet anger. "And your plan is better? Charging headlong into ancient defenses? Brilliant." The air between them crackled. Elias could almost hear the centuries of Kithrin pride and rivalry bleeding through their voices. They weren't just sisters. They were heirs, each carrying their bloodline like a blade unsheathed. Before he could step in, Saris's voice cut softly through the tension. "Both of you, stop. Fear drives your words. I feel it. Stay out of my head." Lyra shot back. Saris turned her gaze to Elias, her eyes dark pools reflecting the flickering lights. "This is why we need him. He carries no Kithrin pride. He sees clearly." Elias cursed inwardly. He hadn't asked to be dragged into their family feud. But as the sisters' voices rose again, echoing down the broken corridor, he raised his hand. Enough! His voice carried the old authority, the tone that had once cut through the chaos of battlefields. The sisters stilled, surprised. You want to survive this ship? You listen. Lyra, charging blind will get us cut to ribbons. Nari, if you hack without caution, you'll trip every alarm left. You need both force and finesse. They glared, but neither argued. Elias leaned closer, lowering his voice. You're sisters. You fight like soldiers from different armies. But right now you're one crew. You don't have to like it. You just have to live through it. The silence that followed was heavier than plasma fire. Then, reluctantly, Lyra nodded. Nari looked away, muttering under her breath, but she, too, adjusted her grip on the slate. It was then the walls trembled. From the shadows ahead, defense drones unfolded, their carapaces glowing red as targeting beams swept the corridor. Positions! Elias barked. Lyra surged forward, blades spinning arcs of molten light. Nari's fingers flew over her slate, sending a feedback pulse that fried one drone midair. Saris pressed against the wall, eyes closed, whispering words in her alien tongue. And Elias felt a ripple of calm steal his nerves, his fear dampened as if she were feeding him courage itself. He returned the favor with human grit. Spotting a weak girder above, he shot it loose. The collapsing beam smashed down, crushing two drones before they could flank them. Sparks sprayed across the corridor, lighting Elias's weathered face. When the fight ended, the sisters stood breathing hard, armor scorched, sweat glistening along alien skin. Lyra stared at Elias with grudging respect. You think like a commander again. Nari gave a crooked grin. Not bad for a retired farmer. But it was Saris who stepped closer, her hand almost brushing his arm. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that sank deep into him. You made us one. No Kithrin could have done that. Elias's throat tightened. He told himself it was just fatigue, just a ghost of old instincts coming alive again. But as he looked at them, three alien sisters bound by rivalry, yet slowly tethered to him, he knew the truth for the first time in years. He felt alive, and that terrified him more than any enemy. Chapter 5, The Choice He Couldn't Refuse. The core chamber opened like the heart of a god. The heavy doors groaned apart, layers of alien alloy peeling back to reveal a vast chamber bathed in shifting light. Streams of energy pulsed through crystalline conduits, painting the air with ripples of blue and gold. At the center hovered the relic, a sphere of fractured crystal suspended above an ancient dais, veins of molten silver pulsing across its surface. The hum it emitted was low but bone-deep, like the heartbeat of the ship itself. Elias stood frozen at the threshold. He had seen many things in his lifetime: superweapons, alien monarchs, fleets that blackened the stars, but nothing like this. The relic wasn't just a machine. It radiated presence, as if it watched him. Nari's breath caught. The Kithrin soul core, her voice shook with awe. It's real. Lyra stepped forward, jaw set, blade lowered in reverence. This is what we came for. It chooses who will rule. Elias frowned. You told me it just needed unlocking. Nari shifted uncomfortably. Well, technically, it decides, Sarah said softly, her eyes fixed on the relic. The core listens to truth, to the essence of the bearer. It cannot be deceived. But because it was bound with human blood at the treaty's forging, it will not answer without you. Elias turned sharply. You dragged me across the void to be your judge. Silence answered him. The sisters avoided his gaze, their postures taut with expectation. Anger surged hot in his chest. He paced before them, boots clanging against the ancient floor. You want to choose? Which of you rules an empire I don't belong to? Do you have any idea how insane that is? Lyra's voice cracked like a whip. It is not insanity. It is survival. Without the relic's choice, our people will descend into blood feud. Billions will die. Nari stepped in, her words tumbling out with reckless desperation. If you pick me, I'll tear down the old laws. Our people need change, not more chains. Pick me, Lyra countered fiercely. I can defend the throne. No rival would dare challenge me if the relic marks me chosen. Ceres did not move. Her voice was calm, but it struck deeper than the others. I do not ask you to pick me, only that you see us clearly. See what will save us. Her eyes lingered on him, dark and unflinching. You have always seen beyond blood and battle. That is why we came to you. Elias's throat went dry. Their voices pressed against him, heavy with hope and desperation. Each one offered something different. Lyra, order through strength. Nari, rebellion and fire. Ceres, quiet unity. The relic pulsed brighter, as though it, too, was waiting. He wanted to turn away, to walk out, leave them to their destiny. But he couldn't. He saw the weight in their faces, the same weight he had once carried when his men looked to him for decisions that meant life or death. His voice came out low, rough. You don't understand. Humans don't choose kings. We don't let fate pick for us. We make our own way, together or we fall. The sisters stared, caught between confusion and defiance. Elias stepped toward the relic. The hum rose, resonating in his chest. If I'm truly the key, then I'll give it one truth. You don't need a ruler. You need each other. Before they could stop him, he pressed his hand to the sphere. The cold burned through his skin, the light flaring so bright it seared his vision. He gritted his teeth, forcing every ounce of his will into it. Not to choose one, but to bind them all. His human stubbornness, his refusal to play by alien rules, poured into the relic like fire through ice. The chamber shook. Energy roared, whipping around them in arcs of blinding light. The sisters cried out as the soul core split its glow into 3 streams, lancing into each of them, Lyra, Nari, Ceres. Their eyes blazed with silver fire as the relic's hum turned into a resonant chord, no longer fractured, but whole. When the light dimmed, Elias fell to one knee, his hand smoking from a contact. The relic floated silently, its glow soft but steady, as if satisfied. The sisters stood transformed, each marked by the core's bond. Lyra's armor shimmered with power. Nari's slate glowed as though alive, and Ceres radiated an aura that made the air itself tremble. They looked at him not as a tool, not as a pawn, but as the man who had given them something greater than power. Unity. Elias lifted his head, his voice hoarse. There, no more choosing, no more war. You want a future? Build it together. The sisters said nothing at first, but Ceres stepped forward, kneeling before him, her hand trembling as it touched his. Her eyes shimmered with gratitude and something deeper. You changed everything, she whispered, because you are human. And for the first time in years, Elias felt that cursed word human as something more than a burden. It was a gift. Chapter 6, A Human Answer. The soul core chamber was quiet now, though the air still tingled with residual energy. The relic floated in calm suspension above the dais, its light softer, steadier, as if it had finally found peace after centuries of silence. Elias sat on the edge of a shattered console, hand bandaged, his breath heavy. His body ached with the weight of what he had done, but the greater weight was the silence that lingered between him and sisters. Nari was the first to break it. She spun in slow, weightless arcs, her slate pulsing with new streams of alien code the core had given her. It worked. The relic bound itself to all 3 of us. Her voice was breathless, tinged with disbelief. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Lyra paced like a caged predator, her armor humming faintly with the core's mark. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice carried reluctant respect. You forced the impossible into being. No Kithrin would ever have dared to defy the ritual. She stopped, eyes narrowing on him. Only a human would. Sarah stood apart, silent, her hands clasped before her chest, as though holding something fragile. When she finally turned to Elias, her gaze was heavy with emotion. You gave us more than unity. You gave us a choice we never imagined. Elias exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. Don't make me out to be a savior. I just refuse to play by your rules. He managed a tired smile. Humans are good at that. Nari laughed, light and unrestrained. Lyra didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched before she looked away. Saris only stepped closer, kneeling slightly so her eyes met his at level. You don't see it, Elias, she whispered. Your refusal, your defiance, that is why we need you. It is not strength or cleverness or power. It is the way you bend the unbendable, the way you bind the broken. Elias shifted, uncomfortable under the weight of her words. He had spent years trying to bury the part of him that people called special. Yet here he was again, dragged back into galaxy storms, proving once more what he swore he never wanted to prove. The return to the Alaris was quiet. The corridors of the derelict ship faded behind them, swallowed again by the dark. As the docking clamps released and their engines thrummed to life, Elias stared out the starfield beyond the viewport. The galaxy felt wider now, alive with possibilities he'd shut himself away from for too long. When they docked at a neutral station days later, the glow of alien neon painted the docking bay in shifting colors. The sisters would return to their people now, carrying the Corps' bond and the fragile promise of peace. Elias would return to his farm, if he chose. But at the airlock, Saris caught his hand. Her skin was warm, her touch hesitant yet firm. You don't have to vanish again. Stay with us. Teach us more what it means to be human. For a moment, Elias's chest ached with temptation. The quiet life he had built for himself seemed pale compared to the fire in her eyes. But he shook his head gently. My part's done. The rest is yours. Besides, humans only shine when someone believes in them. And you three do. Her fingers lingered before she let go, her whisper carrying after him as he stepped away. Then we will never forget you. Elias walked into the station's neon glow, the crowd's murmur rising around him. Humans, aliens, traitors, thieves, all living side by side. The hum of engines, the scent of ozone, the clash of languages. It was messy, imperfect, alive. For first time in years, Elias Ward felt at peace. Not because he had escaped the galaxy's chaos, but because he had given it something it desperately needed. A human answer, stubborn, defiant, and unbreakably alive. The Alaris glided above the neon-lit sprawl of the Kithrin capital, its engines thrumming like a heartbeat. From a viewport, Elias watched as three glowing spires pulse with the Soul Core's new resonance. No longer fractured, but united. Below, alien crowds gathered in awe, voices rising in 1,000 tongues, the sound carrying even through the comms. The sisters stood at his side. Lyra's armor gleamed with authority. Nari's slate flickered with new codes of reform, and Saris's aura shimmered with quiet strength. For the first time, they didn't argue. They simply stood together, bound not by tradition, but by a choice. Elias's reflection in the viewport looked older, scarred, but no longer weary. He had given them what they needed, not as a soldier or a kingmaker, but as a human who refused to bend. Saris touched his arm, her voice soft, trembling with something deeper than gratitude. You changed us, not by power, but by reminding us we could be more. He turned to her, a tired smile tugging at his lips. That's all humans ever do, make a mess of the rules and hope something better comes out. The sisters laughed, light and unguarded, the the sound carrying above the hum of engines. As the ship angled toward the stars, Elias felt the weight of exile lift at last. The galaxy stretched before him, vast, dangerous, beautiful. And for the first time in years, he welcomed it. Saris's hand lingered in his, her words echoing like a vow. Where you walk, Captain, we will never forget. Elias looked back at the endless stars and whispered, almost to himself, then I won't be alone anymore.